Right, it's time to get a fire going because look at that temperature. I mean, it's clear skies outdoors, but it is not that good. So, yesterday I had some embers on there. I thought I'll be lazy, I'll put a log on there, and then I went ahead and did some chores, had a bath, came back, found it hadn't lit. But let's have a look at the other side. Let's see if there's any evidence of that. And we see this wood is completely unmarked, despite the embers, which is interesting. My experience of rekindling a fire as opposed to just lighting a new one is quite limited, so for that reason I knew if I really wanted to get it going I'd need to put some kindling on it, which would burn easily, and that would burn with enough heat to get the logs going, but I didn't do that. And the next thing to do, of course, is just push all the ashes around. And I think once I get this fire going, I'm going to have to get that tray and empty the ashes out. After all, it can't breathe if it's all choked up with ash. And fires do need to breathe. They are living in that sense. I've probably said it before, but I'll say it again. They do many characteristics that a life does. They consume their food. They breathe. They reproduce. And if the conditions aren't right, they will die. So in many ways, a fire is analogous to a life form. I've been watching, speaking of fire, because they use Mithraism in it, even though it seems this Mithraism is suspiciously like some form of fundamentalist Christianity. A show that was recommended to me by Living the Dream called Raised by Wolves. And at first I was intrigued because I thought, you know, virgin territory, they're setting up a tent, they're going to give birth to some human colonists. But then much like Lost, it got me hooked in with the premise. And I thought to myself, this is going to be like Robinson Crusoe, but in space. And then it quickly sort of went off that. It's not anything to do with Robinson Crusoe, and it's not about building any shelters, and there seems to be a lot of very silly stuff in it. For example, there's the genocidal mother robot, who is tasked with upbringing these children as fundamentalist atheists, which is silly because she's actually quite devout in her belief of atheism. And so this colony ship comes in, but oh no, it's the Mithraism ship. So she goes into the ship. She's completely indestructible. She is literally a Mary Sue. Might as well be called Mary Sue instead of Mother Mary Sue. And she's impervious to all weapons fire, because of course you are. And she does a scream, which is really stupid, and the scream makes people explode into giblets without destroying the surrounding environment. And then she tells the flight computer to do a collision course with the planet, and the flight computer says no. And then she says, "Pretty please," and it's like, oh well, in that case, safeguards overrided, I'll obey you. So it crashes. And then, because the plot needs to happen, there are survivors from the ship, Because apparently you can survive a crash landing like that. And they form a small band of survivors who wander in the wilderness. And there's a bit of, oh, what's going on here? There's monsters in the land. But then, I don't know how far I've probably got to the last few episodes of the first series. But the monsters, like, oh, actually, are they monsters? Or are they just misunderstood and that's just your prejudiced, bigoted views, your stereotyping? It's like, well, let's see. They look like monsters. They murder children. Yeah, they're monsters. But then there's some silly stuff happening, and I've got the second series. I'll probably watch it. But it's just... I'd really like... What I would like as a story, and I'm going to use the example of Flight of the Phoenix, is one where you've got people with limited resources and they overcome it and they achieve greatness and it's a restoration of civilization. If I could just have a story like that, which is why I like Peter Hamilton stories, because very often they are cases of people overcoming adversity, or just not even overcoming, well, yes, there is adversity in Peter Hamilton stories. That's often the midpoint crisis of the story, and then the end point is how they resolve that crisis. But I would just like more stories about people getting shit done. I don't like these stories where it's like, well, they do it for television so often, don't they? It's just like, well, we got to have pointless bickering and character development because we only have so much plot for set pieces and action and stuff. So I guess it cost them a lot of money to make a couple of mud huts and this polystyrene tent. So, yeah, bit annoying, really. I would just like to see more stories where people get shit done. Oh, what's that? What's it called? It's like, there was this show, and I think it was done by the Open University, where they sent a bunch of scientists and other competent individuals, and they got that woman who's in all these historical shows, like Life in an Edwardian stately home, and you know the one I'm on about? She's got kind of like nasty teeth and ginger hair, and she's knowledgeable about history and things, and she has a go at churning butter. But anyway, there was this Open University show, and they set it on this island, I think it might have been Sardinia, or something off the coast of Sardinia, and there was like a disused lemon processing factory, and they were set various challenges. I think one of them was you have to make a light bulb and a scuba diving, well, not scuba diving, but like a diving bell with a light bulb to explore the depths. And I think they managed to do it by using some bottles from the lemon factory. They made some carbon filament wire, I think that's what they used. And then they made like an inert gas, I want to say carbon dioxide, because I can imagine you could produce that quite easily from limited resources. But I don't know if you heat up carbon dioxide enough, does it turn into oxygen and carbon monoxide? And then, you know, with carbon filaments, you end up with more carbon monoxide, and don't know. There's a reason they use, is it argon? Well, helium is the first of the noble gases, but I think neon and argon are easy. No, I think they're vacuums. Nitrogen, that's probably the one they use, which is not a noble gas. But I'd like more stories like that, really. And the problem is, stories like that require smart writers. They require writers that have done things rather than just sit in the room writing in a coffee shop, doing pointless bickering and squabbling, which is the extent of their life experiences. You see, modern writers will not be able to do Flight of the Phoenix because they've never experienced adversity like that. They've never experienced the nail-biting tension of, well, in order to get this engine started, we have to use these starter cartridges, which look a lot like shotgun cartridges. but we only have a limited supply thereof. And you need to get it started a few times to clear out the existing soot. Otherwise, it will never start. And it is, I mean, I know, even knowing what the ending was, because I'd seen the remake and also I'd read the story, and even knowing that is absolutely nail-biting. It is. And another example is like Ice Cold in Alex. And before ever seeing the film, I saw the scene, the one where he's drinking the pint, and it's real beer, and they do about 17 takes of it. My God, imagine, well, it's not 17 pints, but it's 17 glasses. Imagine, like the first 3 I could down quite quickly, but by the 17th, my God, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, can we take a break? I need to go have a wee. Apparently he felt quite unwell after doing that scene. What was his name? Alec Guinness? Maybe quite ironic in the sense. Your name being Guinness and you're drinking 17 glasses of, was it Carlsberg or Heineken? I forget what the beer was. But they got permission to make an advert. Oh, speaking of beer adverts, in Star Wars they did... the series was shown in on the Chilean television networks back in 2002, that's it. And they didn't have any advert breaks. Well, they did have an advert break, but it was actually done in a very clever fashion in that it was product placement. And I'm going to go watch it because it won the Cannes International Festival for Most Creative Adverts. But they basically just took various scenes from the Star Wars, recreated it, and had like, you know, down to like hand props and stuff. So you got like Darth Vader reaching for a can of ice cold beer for whatever the local piss water was. But it sort of blended in very well. So yeah, I'm going to go watch those because I think to myself, I need to see Star Wars the way Pinochet intended it to be seen, with beer product placement in it. You know, who drunk first, Han Solo or the puppet? With stupid names in Star Wars. You know, back in the early 90s, I used to care about that thing because it's like, well, it's got sword fighting and lasers, and it's got a good orchestral score, and John Williams, unlike Hans Zimmer, knows how to perform engaging music. I don't understand the fascination with Hans Zimmer. He's not that good. He's very bland. And yeah, it was good. And then I watched the prequels and thought, well, it's all right, but it's not as good as the originals. Maybe he'll get better. And no, he did not get better. But anyway, Raised by Wolves. If you've not seen it and you're bored, because I'm bored at the moment, I seem to have exhausted YouTube now. There's nothing really good on it. I'm sure there is, but its algorithm's like, well, no, we're just going to show you stuff you're not interested in. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just not going to use YouTube anymore. Maybe that's their way to get around people that use ad blockers. Is just show him interesting. Just show him really boring shit he's not interested in. But Raised by Wolves, is it something I would actively watch? No, it is not. There's numerous bits in it which just ruin the immersion for me and just go, well, this was a stupid writing choice. But is it something I passively watch? Oh, you betcha. I'm playing a game. I'm having it on in the background. If there's any remotely interesting scene, I might watch it or pay it a bit more attention. But that's the advantage of having two monitors. It gives me the chance to do lots of passive watching. So how about that fire? Wow. How about that fire indeed? We've gone up. We're now at 17 degrees. This is almost tolerable. Almost. I've run out of things to say now. Well, I've got a ladybird. I'm going to... once I'm done with this, I'm going to go open the door and let it fly outside. And then, do I want tea? I don't have any croissant. I don't. Well, I've got some bread. No, I don't feel like tea and toast. Oh, maybe I'll have some peach tea. That's a easy drink to have. But I can't be bothered to make normal tea because then I've got to put it in the teapot and use the strainer, and I can't be arsed. So then I've got to clean the teapot as well. I could use tea bags like a normal human being, but for whatever reason I was just like, no, I'm going to make, in order to make tea different. This is the same thing like with cigarettes as opposed to pipe smoking. Pipe smoking is a real hassle and it's a pain in the arse and it's a special ceremony. So I only do it on special occasions, whereas with cigarettes you just smoke them without thinking about them. And it's the same with tea bags, you know, just pop the kettle on, tea bag in, brew, milk, done. But with the teapot it's more involved, much like smoking a pipe, which in some ways I'd say makes it more special, but also means it's not something I'm doing every day. How about that fire, eh? I said I was going to empty out that ash. Right, I've got to empty out ash, which means this video's done. Bye.